Here we are with Barbara. What's going on, Barbara?
Hey, it's good to be here. We're here at Shasta Spring today. And my name is Barbara Bain, and I'm Upper Klamath Shasta, so my people are Shasta, Indian, and my people have lived here in this area for more than 13,000 years. But for our beliefs, we believe that we've always been here, we've always been created here, and that our Creator, who we call Weka, stepped foot here at Mount Shasta Spring to create our people.
So the very spring itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is our sacred place, one of our sacred places, and it's a sacred place of emergence for us. So this is where the Creator put us here onto the earth, and that's how we revere and how the spring is sacred to us.
That's beautiful. Is it tough sharing it with everyone? I know that's a personal question.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the gifts of Creator is that, originally it was intended for our people, but Creator made all people, so we're all Creator's children, and that's what I was taught from my elders. And so while it's sacred to us and it belongs to us in a way, it also belongs to all people and people that treat it as sacred and revere it as sacred. And so I believe that the people that come here are here to connect with the sacred ways again. And so I have my PhD in Indigenous psychology.
Oh my gosh, no way. Wow.
And in depth psychology, so I did some of my field work here, which is one of the reasons I'm talking to you, to kind of play it back, pay it back.
Please.
Yeah.
This is something that, I mentioned to you, I just started my new channel, and I want to push, because I'm in the right region, I want to push a stronger emphasis on maybe there's so many people that are thirsty.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so much spiritual sustenance in the ways of the people of the land where you're at, I guess in my personal belief, I almost feel like the belief systems of people are almost transferred into the microbes and everything, that it's like if you honor those practices in that land, even centuries later, I almost feel like there's more power to that.
Yeah. Well, I think that we're inherently spiritual beings, and so wherever we are, we're going to be drawn to the places that have power and that have spiritual power if we're awake and we're aware that we're spiritual beings. And so we're seeking, right? We're seeking sacred places. We're seeking ways to connect. And so this is one of those places that it has such power and such spiritual power that people can't kind of help but gravitate to it in order to find themselves and their own connection with the spiritual world.
Even if they don't know they're here for spiritual purposes.
Even if they don't know.
Yeah. I feel the same way about the national parks, because most of them are on native spiritual lands,
Yeah.
I feel like people are drawn in and they're doing this energy work and they don't even know they're doing ceremony.
Yeah.
Going there with their families and they're really doing ritual.
Yeah. And what I studied, at least if we just look at modern psychology, is that 80% of what we do is unconsciously motivated, and 15 to 20% is really what we realize we're doing, and it's kind of above the surface. But we're drawn to things, to people, to places for reasons that a lot of the time we don't even know, we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
So I look at this place, of my people, of our people, as being sacred, and that there's over 300 people a day during the summer that come here on average in order to collect the water. So if that's not a spiritual mecca, I don't know what is. Yeah. And so I can care for this place, I can love this place, and I know that my ancestors have been here and always will be here. And the story is being told, it's still being told. The narrative of all of this is ongoing. So we don't know where this is going. We don't know where all of this is heading. We're being present with it as it is right now, with the colonial history that has, taken over this place and all of the colonization. But that's ongoing. For us, it's not like we lost the war. For us, colonization is an ongoing process. And as a decolonial Indigenous psychologist, I work in the field of decoloniality and Indigenous people. We look at these places as something to preserve and uphold, that also upholds our people. So to know that we're Shasta Indians, that we are still here, that there are many of us. But in terms of colonization, our people were scattered like stars. But our people believe that we'll come back, and that's on the way. And as we can see today, that there's a rise of Indigenous people all over the world, and here in the United States and in North America, and even here in California. There are more Indians in California than in any other state in the U.S.
And they're the kids are actively trying to relearn their languages that have been lost, and like, what do you foresee? Which direction can we take this, and like how can we do? Like, what type of moral obligations do you think we might have? You know, and what as a society, and maybe like, say there's people watching this, like, how can we be a part of ideas that you might have personally as someone who's like intimately connected to it as a native Klamath Valley tribe, and someone who's
Shasta Indian.
Shasta
Upper
Indian,
Klamath
sorry,
Shasta.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. And someone
There's
who's
a lot of people that share this as a sacred place. The Winneman Wintu.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And the Modoc, do they come this far south?
Yeah, a lot of people come here.
But like, and again, you have such a mix though, because you know it hits you on a personal level, but then also like an academic level, an intellectual level. What type of foreseeable change do you think we can make?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think you know, as visitors to our land, so anyone that isn't, you know, kind of born as an ancestor to this place in a colonial context, you know, we can kind of see this as, you know, we're guests here. In the Shasta Indian Aboriginal territory, the Winneman Wintu, you know, all of the tribes that our ancestral lineages are here in this place. And so as people who are guests and visitors of our land, and then native to California in terms of like people that were born here, that is a native person to California. Indigeneity is a different issue. So as Indigenous people, we want to remind those people who are coming into our territories to just approach it with respect, ask a lot of questions, give offerings, but not offerings that choke out the spring, that stop everything up, you know.
Like people throwing crystals in the Panther Meadow Spring. Oh my gosh, how do you even handle that? And like some of them you're not going to get through to them.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you can love it all to death, you know, and so
but that's what you
we
do.
want to make sure and not love it to death. We want to make sure to even to just offer a prayer and nothing else. Offer a piece of hair, rather than something that is not of this place. You know, if we offer a piece of hair, that's a very powerful offering. We can offer that too.
Wow.
Yeah, and then to respect the native people, you know, and to ask for permission to go to the places when you can find an elder in that area, because in traditional ways we couldn't say no, you can't go there, but we would like to be asked for permission.
Totally.
And then protocols can be shared. How do you respect that place appropriately?
You're opening up a dialogue through the permission.
Yeah. And so
which is like respect,
total respect. Yeah. So that's really all that we ask, you know, as people who are Indigenous to this place and this land.
Do you think that we could make any type of big movements? Do you think we could ever like try to get the native tribes in charge of the national parks, or any creative radical things, or do you think that it's just too much to fight?
Yeah, I think that it's a huge system, you know, and so, but it's important that we work with the people who are here now, you know, and that we work in a loving and respectful and honorable way, and that goes both ways. Yeah. There's, like I say, that the narrative is ongoing, right? Colonization is an ongoing process for us. So we're here to say that we'll see where it goes into the future. But right now it's just an ongoing process, and we're going to continue to advocate and stand up for our rights and our sacred places. And I think part of that is acknowledging the history of colonization, conquer, and genocide that affected our people. So when in 1851 there was a genocide in Scotts Valley, just north of here, just outside of Etna, and that was the genocide of our people. The Shasta tribes, the 13 different tribes, were gathered.
So these were all organized?
Yes.
Who organized it all?
The U.S. military, ranchers, and miners.
Was that a part of the same one that eradicated or like attacked the Winneman Wintu?
All of it. Yeah, it was the same military campaign that came up in 1849, 1850, and 1851. So in November of 1851 is when they got it to Scott Valley, and then they collected all of the 13 different Shasta nations, you know, bands that made up the entire Shasta Nation, and they held a feast, and that feast was laced with strychnine and poison, and on that day thousands and thousands of Shasta Indians died.
Can you imagine the suffering, and not even the fact that they all died, but just being there knowing that everyone around you is dying? It just must have been so horrific.
It's horrific, truly horrific. And so one of the things that we acknowledge is that on that day, that changed everything in our world, our relationship with the land, our relationship with everything, and that is a great suffering that we continue to remember and honor. So there were only 150 Shasta left after that genocide.
Oh my gosh.
130 of those survivors were moved up to the Siletz Indian Reservation 5 years later. and 28 women, maybe 30 women were kept as the minors, for the miners and the ranchers and the military, and they were passed around and forced to have their children. We call those the 28 Shasta women. And today, the work that I do as a decolonial Indigenous psychologist and as a person who is descendant of one of those women, all of the work I do is in honor of their sacrifice, and to let them know that we will never forget their sacrifice. We will never forget what those Shasta women went through. We call them our ever so great grandmothers. And so the decolonial work that I do on behalf of not only my own people, but all Native people, in a way that kind of helps all of us move forward and share our gifts, and when appropriate, the spiritual practices that help us live as human beings again, because that's really what we know about. Those are what our sacred ways are. They are the original ways that were given to us that show us how to be in a good and a balanced protocol and a relationship with all things. All things have life, right? And all people are worthy of our respect and our honor and our regard. And these tree people, those rock people, right? Those are people, those aren't symbolic of anything. They're actual. They're representative of the natural world. They're not symbolic of it. They're representatives. So we honor them as such.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I'm what they call panpsychist. Because you're panpsychist and what's the other one? I believe it. Animism and panpsychism I definitely identify with. Everything everything. Self-sustaining systems and self-replicating systems are conscious systems that are part of smaller networks of conscious systems that go down and up forever, from the universe all the way down to atoms. It's just a giant life form that spreads through different networks of consciousness. I believe that heavily. But then animism, like that stream has a spirit and a consciousness. Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
But it's nice because I feel like having to prove everything takes away the magic out of things,
Yeah, proving is a scientific approach, right? Proving is about evidence.
Yeah.
So we ask why, instead of asking why in the work that I do, and I'm a dream worker. So we go all the way back to the roots of what created us. We all emerge from a dream. And so if we ask the question, who is visiting? What is visiting? How am I in relationship with that? Not why is it here? It's here.
It's here.
The question is, what kind of a relationship do we have with all of these things that we perceive and that we feel to be sacred?
So do you feel like they're aspects of ourselves, or do you think that they're...
No, I think that they are unto themselves,
right,
and that we are a part of one another.
So you think they're like only on this plane, or they're kind of on this plane, or they exist in multiple planes together?
I think that...
You're talking about entities, right?
We're talking about trees, we're talking about nature spirits,
cool.
We're talking about anything that is of the natural and spiritual world.
The soul.
And so I think part of our challenge is just to discern what is of man-made law and the man-made world versus what is natural law and spiritual law. And those are two different things.
Yeah.
Because with our free will, we can create a lot of understandings and a lot of beliefs, but that are not necessarily in alignment with sacred and spiritual law. Yeah, so I think our quest here is to get back to those places to answer your question. First we have to source within ourselves. Who are we, and what is our calling here? And one of the ways that I encourage people to understand what their calling is to know where the bones of your ancestors are buried, to know their story, to know how they got there, to know what they struggled,
they're part
what
of
they
you.
went through. They're part of you, and they're part of your story and your ongoing story. And if you know your story, then you don't have to borrow anybody else's stories or traditions. You can go back to your original creation dream, and you can find the purpose of your people, and you can carry that purpose forward. So no one has to borrow from Indigenous ways. You have your own Indigenous ways, and if we go way back, everyone is Indigenous somehow.
Agreed.
From a sacred place of emergence. So that's really our quest, is for all of us to find that again. And then we can honor one another's dream, right? So I don't have to worry about what your dream is. You don't have, I'm living my dream, you're living your dream.
Yeah.
And there's a great dream that is dreaming us, right? So within that, we're walking our own personal dream. And so if you understand, what your calling is, and if you have a personal relationship with the Creator and the sacred world, to know what that is, and to know that clearly, not just through psychedelics or other medicines, but to get a sense of, through the dreaming world, clean and clear, what does that mean for you, and what is your ancestor have to say to you? How are they coming to you through your dreams, and what are they asking you to do here in a very clear and conscious way? And then you know what to do. Then you don't have to borrow from anybody else. There doesn't need to be any cultural appropriation, right?
Yeah. Wow.
We can all find that.
So I guess how do you suggest people that might feel like say people's family ties are splintered, just genealogy maybe?
Yeah, it's good. Go talk to your grandmothers, talk to your grandfathers, talk to the elders.
Like my family's all dead. I don't have any ancestors.
Then I go back to marriage certificates, death certificates, land records, things like that. Any kind of paperwork that you can find that shows where your people were with them. And if you can't find that, then you put a prayer into the world. You put a prayer directly to the Creator and ask the Creator to guide you. And if you give that prayer will be answered.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess I never really thought about it like that, so I appreciate that. I try to go in and like do that to a degree, but I guess, I don't know. My family has so much misinformation and like...
It's true, and that's another reason why I encourage people to get really solid about what your ancestry is. Like for me, it took a long time to get all that paperwork and to go jump through the hoops of all that lineage so I could really go back to the old census records from the 1800s to really see, you know, it says Shasta there on that census record, you know, so I know my ancestors all the way back to prior to Conqueror.
It's so amazing.
And so that's totally possible for people to know who they are, because we're just kind of lost. A lot of people are just kind of lost and floating around and kind of looking for meaning and value and purpose in the world. And so we try to get that from the larger culture, right? The society and civilization, but it doesn't really have it for us anymore. That's one way of living. And so if we want to find out what was intended for us, then that begins with our prayer. And then to step up to the obligations and the responsibilities that that prayer offers us, not just all the goodies, but what are my responsibilities now in this world, and how do I walk with those in an honorable and in a beautiful way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's deep. What gets you to do, like, are you high energy? Do you think a lot? What gets you to like go into such deep thoughts and feel driven to seek on your own? Like what's driven you to do these types of? You're very passionate, and it's obvious. Is it just because of your heritage and the 13 grandmothers and you like dedicating to them, or is it it deeper than that? So,
you know, when I learned the story of the 28 Shasta women, that was a profound moment for me. It was deeply, it was a profound heartbreak. And so I have to walk with that heartbreak, and sometimes our heartbreaks, they show us what our purpose and meaning is in the world, because we feel so deeply about that, you know. And I just grew up, you know, my family was a hunting and fishing family. I'm from an Indian family, so even though I present as very kind of, I look not as native as a lot of people, that is because there were so few Shasta left. And so I also acknowledge that I'm Peruvian, I'm Bolivian.
I can see that, yeah.
I'm Maori from New Zealand and Easter Island.
Wow.
I'm Kanaka, I'm Hawaiian. My Hawaiian ancestors came here in 1851, so I'm Shasta Kanaka, as well as Scots-Irish and some other European. And so I honor all of my ancestors, including my European ancestors, and I walk with the fact that I have the blood of both the conquered and the conqueror. And so it's my responsibility now to learn as much as I can about all of that, to help teach people, to share, and so that the horrific things that happen to my people don't happen again in this world, because I can't ignore that history. I can't ignore what happened to my people, but I can make something more of it.
And it wasn't long ago.
For us, it was 160 years and counting. It was just yesterday for us. It's not a historical event for us. It's something that we continue to live with. It's an ongoing history and narrative. Yeah. And so that's what I do. I do what I do in honor of my Shasta grandmothers.
That's
and
amazing.
in honor of all people.
Wow.
Because we're all Creator's children.
I totally agree. I'm just like so pondering all the things you said. I'm like too busy trying to think of something interesting to ask you to maybe get it towards wrapping it up. We hit the 15-minute mark plus, and I don't want to hold you all day. Let me think. All right, so I don't think I even need to ask you. What are some final words? You got a message you want to share?
Yeah. I just want to say that, you know, for here at the Spring, that I only speak for myself. I only represent myself as an Upper Klamath Shasta woman and a Kanaka, and that my intention here today is not to offend anyone or to harm anyone, but that the words that I'm sharing and what I'm sharing today, may it be a blessing to all people, and may it be a healing for this world, that we may all find our way back to what it means to be human and in relationship with the unspirited world and with the Creator again.
That is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I love getting to watch this later, because sometimes it's like you'll have these conversations in life, but like to really get the depth, I might have to watch this once or twice.
Yeah, good. And if you need to contact me, you can contact me at indigenousawakening.com.
Great.
You can also find me on Instagram at Barbara Bain. Bain, I think it's Bain.Barbara. My Instagram
B-A-N-E?
Bain, Barbara. And but if you just do a little search, indigenousawakening.com and Barbara Bain, you'll find me.
You're amazing. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Wow.